And welcome everyone to today's shared conversation session. My name is Alexis Kolak, and I am the Director of Education for Share. I am here with Tom Cosenza from the Share Board of Directors. Hi, Tom.
Hey,
Thank you for
Alexa, how
joining
you doing?
us. And today's shared conversation is about an introduction to post-quantum cryptography, everything you wanted to know and some things you didn't, because I know I find it very, very scary. Hopefully, our attendees today, though, will find it informative. So for today's broadcast, Tom and I will be having a conversation. We're not necessarily going to share slides, but we are going to talk through some critical things about post-quantum cryptography. If you are an attendee and you would like to participate in the dialogue or have questions, you can use the Q&A tool in the Zoom toolbar. You can also enter conversations into the chat if you want to. And if you would like to be taken off mute, you can use the raise hand feature and I will take you off mute so that you can ask your question directly to Tom. We're going to take between 20 minutes to 30 minutes today to walk through this. It's a flexible agenda. And at the end of this, we will post the recording to share.org and let you know once that's available in case you'd like to revisit it, as well as future sessions in this series. So with that, let's go ahead and kick things off. And Tom, I'm going to ask the question that is on everyone's minds. Please explain what PQC is and why it's terrifying.
Okay, well, so PQC is obviously post-quantum compute, right? So it's a new paradigm in the way that we're going to do calculations. So right now in classic computing, we have zeros and ones, right? So if we want to do something, we try a zero, then we try a one, and then we might try a 1 0 or 0 1, and we have to go through all these iterations, right? Which for simulating things, for doing calculations, it can be very time consuming for even for a classic computer, standard computer of our time. However, with quantum computing, we are now there's a whole new world that's opened up because we can actually have a bit at 0 and 1 at the same time. We can have it simultaneously through superpositioning. So we can actually test multiple states at one time, which makes things like simulations, very very easy to do, much quicker, right? So and this is great, and it's not all scary, right? So there are things like medical technologies, finances, other chemical engineering, they're all going to benefit from this technology. So this technology isn't just evil and bad. However, there are, like any technology, there are downsides to it. Now, one of the downsides to it is the fact that through this superpositioning, a key encryption that we use in everyday life, asymmetric encryption, can be broken. So let's just talk real briefly about asymmetric encryption and what asymmetric encryption is. So asymmetric encryption basically means I have two keys, right? Now, I can't if I encrypt something with one key, I can't decrypt it with that key. I have to use a different key to decrypt it. All right. Now these keys are basically based off of large prime numbers, right? So it makes it very hard to guess, right? So you have two very large prime numbers, and because we have these two large prime numbers, that a classical computer can't just go through and figure out what those primes are. This is a very secure way to do encryption, and this encryption is used to through a lot of things, basically transmit what we call a symmetric key, right? So the symmetric key is where the key is the same on both sides, but you have a passing issue with that. So with the asymmetric, it allows us to basically have a public key and a private key, and I can send my public key out to everybody. And you know that if I encrypt it with my private key, right? You know that it came from me because I'm the only one that could have encrypted it, that message, right? With a public key. And vice versa. If you encrypt something with my public key and you send it to me, I'm the only one that can read it because I get my private key. So there's all sorts of crypto basics here that you can do in games and digital signings and things like that. So
So,
and this has become the basis for uh, all our e-commerce, right? So for instance, when you log onto your bank, you get a certificate. The certificate has a public key in it. That public key is used to create the cipher, the cipher key to be able to then transmit data encrypted.
so a lot of
Now,
the techniques that bad actors might be using in other formats aren't going to work here because there's not really an opportunity to brute force the system.
Correct. Right. We can't brute force this. We can't brute force these keys. Right. There's not a strong enough computer. Right. Because and to do that, obviously, and people that have been in this industry know that we've had to increase the key size to make that happen. So an asymmetric key is, a secure one right now is about 2048 bits long. Right. So it's a very large prime number. Right. Now, fast forward to quantum computing can go and calculate that key very quickly in comparison because of the superpositioning, because of the fact it can do a whole bunch of simulations at one time. So now that RSA encrypted key is very easily broken, and once you've broken it, then everything that's associated with it is now can be decrypted, right? Because I can get that symmetric key, and once I have a symmetric key, I can start decrypting the other pieces of this conversation. So that's the major problem with it. Now that comes from an algorithm called Shor's algorithm, right? So Shor's algorithm cannot run on a on a classical computer with any efficiency. On a
It would just
quantum
melt
computer,
into a puddle across the desktop and just
not
spread up
not
and burn
quite, but
straight through.
it would take a long time. But on a quantum computer, it's very efficient. There for symmetric encryption right now, everything's considered going to be pretty safe for a while. There is a Grover's algorithm that can be run, and it could cause some leakage, but there's not as much thought in the industry right now that that Grover's algorithm is going to cause a great problem when quantum computers come out and they're more used. Now, by used, I mean state actors. It's going to be companies like large companies. Your Googles, your Microsofts, your Nvidias. They'll have they'll have these because they're very expensive to run. They have to the computer has to a quantum computer has to be run at basically 0 Kelvin. And it's going to be run in a very cold space. So it's not something that you can just pick up at your local hardware store. But you're
You're
still
you're just
talking
you're
state
adding more
actors.
danger to this, I have to say. You talked about how this can brute force encryption, and now you're talking about the cooling requirements for this, and we're already seeing this enormous drain on power. So bad actors in two directions. Great.
Yes. You know,
But doesn't that sort of limit the possibilities of this if only certain parties can have access to this kind of thing, and it's going to require capital to get to
it's
this
going to
point?
require capital, and I don't know if it'll ever get cheap enough where it would be that a low level hacker or someone would be able to use it. However, you are still talking about, like I said, state government, nation states. You could have criminal organizations. You could have, so there are places with means out there that can leverage this technology, right? We also won't know. Maybe there'll be like rental, agreements where you can rent time on a quantum computer or something like that. I mean, who knows what comes down the pike? But it's important to us as an industry to make sure that the data that we have is secure. So bringing this back to the mainframe, because quantum doesn't run on the mainframe. However, we do use a lot of asymmetric encryption, right? We do use a lot of these these techniques to encrypt data to keep data safe. So one of the biggest problems right now is the harvest now, decrypt later scenario, where you are having bad actors knowing that, hey, we're going to have a quantum computer with enough what we call qubits. Qubits is the power of the processing to be able to break this encryption. So what if I started collecting the data now, and then a few years down the road, right, we're going to be able to decrypt that data and see what's in there. Even if it's not relevant for that time, you still might get PI data, you might get social security
Fine.
numbers, things like that. So it's very important to even start thinking about this now in our industry to make sure that we're going to be secure, that we're doing what we need to do to secure our customers and our users' data to make sure that this does not come to fruition.
So you answered my next question in an unhappy way, which was going to be how long do we have to prepare for this? And the answer is yesterday.
Yes, sir. Well, so there are different thoughts on this, right? So I think with the harvest now, decrypt later, and it really depends on the industry you're in. Um, Different industries probably have different horizons. I think any financial industry, it is yesterday, right? There are some other industries where the data is not as time sensitive. Like it doesn't last. It's more of the minute. So those may be closer to whatever date. But the problem is too, and the people call this Y2Q, right? So everybody, okay, I remember. Probably not everybody on here, but I remember
That
Y2Q.
makes my eye twitch a little bit when you say that. Anyone who was alive for that point has just gone, oh no, not this again.
Yeah, Y2K, where we were all worried about, the fact the century was rolling over, and then what would happen when, all of a sudden we'd start having, programs that didn't have the 4-digit year. So,
Computer failures, mass
uh,
chaos.
but here's the thing: we knew when that date was coming, right? We knew January 1st, 2000. That was the date, right? That would be the test date. So we had an exact date to go by. We don't have an exact date with this, right? There are some estimates that it'll be 2030. There are some estimates that 2035. There are some estimates that even 2028 now there's a chance, right? So that's only 2 years from now,
It's
right?
not like Skynet where we're actually going to get the date at some point and someone's going to say this is the moment where it cut over and this is where
Right.
everything happened. Probably not going to be, depending on who achieves this, may not also be something that they publicize at that point so they can continue to operate behind the scenes without people realizing.
Correct. Correct.
So,
So I mean, that's the problem that we don't know. So we have to make sure as an industry that we're doing everything we can right now to leverage the technologies we have now and prepare for when quantum safe algorithms and protocols are available,
okay.
right? So that's why we need, and that's why we came up with the blueprint ideas, because this is really something that's important for our industry right now, is to understand what our vulnerabilities are, what we need to do to start preparing for that, and then what is going to be the plan to go forward for our different organizations.
So with that in mind, I know the blueprint agenda is going to get into a lot more depth into some of these topics. There's going to be a lot of opportunity for dialogue. We have more like 15 minutes, and I do want to leave people with a sense of hope. Personally, I would like to leave with a sense of hope for this. So, what's happening right now to address this, and what are the kinds of things that mainframe professionals should be paying attention to and learning more about in order to prepare for this and to inform and educate their colleagues?
Okay, so the good news is there is a lot of focus. I think there is a lot of focus starting to come on to PQC, because everybody was very AI, and you're starting to see a shift in that a little bit into PQC, to move some of that to PQC. We know that the IETF is working on drafts right now for both TLS and for IPsec and SSH to adopt quantum safe uh, exchanges and algorithms that are out there. There are algorithms right now. They were and they're lattice algorithms. So, and don't ask me to explain them. That'll be the next thing. I'll let Ann
We'll just
talk
push that
about.
off. Hey, Anne, guess what we put you on the spot
Yeah,
for?
yeah. She'll talk about
Start
she'll
drawing
talk
it
about
out.
lattice cryptography, which is something that's well beyond my understanding. But they were actually called Kyber and Dilithium and Falcon. Those were the three code names for the. I can remember those. The new one is like I don't remember them what the new names are off the top of my head, but those were the original. Those were the original when they were still in draft form. But they're available, right? And they're coming out, and they are. I believe some of them are even available on the new platform for mainframe. So that's even there now, ready to go with the new crypto cards. The important thing is, when they start getting applied, like you have to be ready to do that, right? So you have
Mhm.
to start with like an inventory, and you have to, those are things you can do right now. You can do a crypto inventory of what you've got, right? What are you using for communication security? What are you using for data center security? What are you using for DASI security, right? What cryptography do you already have running right now? And again, that's going to help with that harvest now, decrypt later piece, right?
And some of these changes may take a while, right? If you have something related
It
to how
will.
you're managing certificates and it's essentially hard coded in there, you're going to be doing some digging.
Yeah, you should definitely start thinking about this now. You should not wait till you can, when I said 2030, and I know that that's the date many people are pointing at. 2030, if you start in 2029, you're already too late. You're not going to make 2030 because of the enormity of the data that's in our that's on our platform, right? You need to start now. You need to start planning it now. And this needs to become a focus of your organization, in my opinion, uh, sooner rather than later, because otherwise you're going to be very much behind the eight ball on this.
We had a question come in from uh, the audience, and that is around if I wanted to get, if I wanted to make my organization aware of this without terrifying people, what would the right approach be, and what should my message be internally?
Well, I don't know. I think it's like anything you need to prepare. You need to do your due diligence. You want to frame it in a way that this is a due diligence conversation, right? You don't want to just make it fear. You don't want to just be chicken little, obviously. However, you do want to stress that as computing power changes, as things get stronger, we need to make sure that we are taking advantage of stronger algorithms, and we understand where our data is, how it's encrypted, these pieces here. So you really need to have a program around that. And I think any organization has a good risk group for that should be the first persons you talk to, and then you should work with your CISO and your other managing staff to make this a priority within the organization.
Got it. In terms of things to learn a little bit more about, talked about doing the crypto inventory. We've put Anne on the spot for lattice topography, which is great. I know Tim Hill is going to join us in a couple of weeks, and he's going to talk about the changes to the algorithms that are going to happen in this post-quantum era versus what we're seeing right now. Is there anything else topic-wise that you think people should spend some time digging into, a key opportunity, something we're going to cover at Blueprint that you want people to be aware of?
Well, first of all, so I think it's very important to take this on two tracks because we do tend to be more technical, but I think the governance side of this is also very important, right? And that's actually why we're having a separate governance track for this, is so that way we can, it's just as important that how you're going to apply these policies than what you are actually doing with these policies, right? So
Mhm.
they're both very, very important to be able to have. And I mean, I would start looking at how different protocols work, how especially like TLS and TLS 1.3. Uh, Basically, and this is no secret, any post quantum safe algorithm for TLS, and we all use TLS, is going to need TLS 1.3. So you should get acquainted with it, how it works, how it's very different than TLS 1.2. So if you're using that, and I'm a network guy, so of course I'm all over the TLS part. So apologize if I'm going along on that. But also, understand how how what you need to do to secure yourself now, right? And understand these ciphers and understand these algorithms, so that way, we don't want to use not only just triple DES, but maybe we don't even want to use just RSA encryption with AES. We want to use elliptical curve RSA encryption with AES, right? So understand those differences. So kind of learn how those uh, different crypto pieces fit together, and then what's optimal for you to use.
And this is really the time, right, to sort of broaden your scope and vision of how you view the mainframe's role in the enterprise, right? Because you're going to use some of this in the interim in order to prepare. It's not that you are suddenly going to become the expert in all of these things. It's that you're going to have to make sure that you can articulate in a conversation with all of the other impacted team members and departments and your regulatory group exactly what's going on and exactly how to make sure that you're not creating a risk for lag, right?
Right.
Or anything affecting compute. Because
Correct.
that's the other piece of this, right? Is we want to be safe, but even minuscule slowdown in response to this is not going to be received well. So there's a risk there too.
Yeah, you don't want to be the last one at the party.
You you want to be reasonably early and well prepared and understand what the party theme is, right?
Exactly.
You want to fit in with the group. You want to wear the right outfit for what's happening here, is what our analogy is going to be.
Yes.
Excellent. We are open for questions. If any of our attendees want to share anything else, you can use the chat. You can raise your hand. We are good on those fronts. While I give it a minute for anyone who's interested to submit an additional question, I will note that we have two additional sessions coming up. One is on June 11th, and that is with Ann Dames from IBM. She's going to be covering even more PQC, so we're going to just add lattice topography to her agenda. She'll be thrilled. And then, as I mentioned, PQC algorithms on June 16th with Tim Hill. And I thought I saw a hand go up. Was that Janice? Did you have a question?
Sorry, no, I'm good.
Okay.
Thank you, though.
Thank you for making sure the functionality works for us. Uh, Tom, any message that you want to make sure that we leave people with? I know I came in a little on the doom and gloom side here because I find this to be intimidating and a challenge. It's not that we're not all used to unprecedented at this point, right? And technology starting to run a little bit faster than us, but this one, you'll excuse the pun, but it's a bit of a quantum leap in terms of what I couldn't resist. It's a bit of a quantum leap in terms of what we're facing. So why are you still smiling? Why are you still hopeful about this?
I'm smiling because I just thought of "Oh Boy" from Quantum Leap, but the when you said that, but no, I look. This is an opportunity. No tech. I mean, every technology has its downsides. It has things we have to prepare for. There's no technology that isn't like that. So this is just another in a long line. Now, the mainframe and the mainframe community has always stood up to the challenge, and we've always gotten ahead of it, right? And that's why we're the best platform out there, right? Period, bar none. Uh, we are the best platform in the world, and we will meet this challenge as well. It's just very important that you that we as a community, I shouldn't say you, we as a community make sure that we are keeping this a forefront. We're letting our business people over in our businesses know that this is something that we really do need to make a priority in our workspace.
Fantastic. I think that's a good closing point. For our attendees, we will share a recording of today's webinar. I will also make sure that that includes a link to the article that Tom just authored for Shared Intelligence, which is the basics of PQC, so that you can either review that or share it with colleagues. And then we encourage you to join us in future sessions. We do also hope to see you at Share Pittsburgh this August. As we've mentioned a few times, we have Share Blueprint for the very first time. This is a deep dive into post-quantum cryptography, both from the governance and technical perspective. It'll be happening on Thursday and Friday. And you can register for that as part of Share Pittsburgh or attend as a standalone. So please visit us at share.org to learn more about the agenda and how you can join us this summer in Pittsburgh. So thank you so much, everyone, for being here today. Have a great rest of your day, and we look forward to seeing you at a future session.
Yes, thank you for joining us.